Hi everyone, today we will discuss about special criminal investigation. Module 1. These are the objectives. At the end of this chapter, the student can elaborate methods of identification of criminals, comprehend the homicide and murder investigation. Number 3 is discover the duty and job of criminal investigator. Number 4 is comprehend the robbery and thief investigation duty of criminal investigators. First is establish that in fact a crime was committed under the law. Number 2 is identify and apprehend the suspect. Number 3 to recover stolen property. Number 4 to assist the state in prosecuting the party charged with the offense. Job of the criminal investigator. Number 1 is discover whether or not an offense has been committed under the law. Number 2, after determining what the specific offense has been committed, he must discover how, when, where, why, what offense was committed. Methods of identifications of criminals. Criminal are identified through these following. Number 1 is confession and admission. Number 2 is statement of witnesses. Number 3 is circumstantial evidence. And then number 4 is associative evidence. A. Confession. This is an express acknowledgement by the accused in criminal cases of the truth of his guilt as the crime charge of some of the essential part thereof. There is no applied confession, for it is positive and direct acknowledgement of guilty. It is the best means of identifying criminal. Rules in confession. A. Confession need not to be in writing. Letter B is confession may be written in language which the accused does not speak. Then letter C is confession must be freely and voluntarily made. Voluntarily means that the accused speak of his free will and accord, without inducement of any kind, and with the full and complete knowledge of the nature and consequence of the confession. Freely. When the speaking is so free for the influence affecting the will of the accused, at the same time the confession was made. And these are the requirements for confession as proof of guilty. Number 1 is other corroborative evidence must support it. Number 2 is corpus delicti must be established separately, or the actual commission of the crime charge. It refers to a particular crime and signifies that specific offense has been actually committed by someone, being composed of two elements, that certain results were produced, that someone is criminally responsible. The number 3 is confession must be made voluntarily. Letter B is by eyewitness testimony. This description made by eyewitness. Value of identification by eyewitness testimony depends on the following. Number 1 is the ability of the eyewitness testimony to observe and remember the relative distinctiveness of the accused's appearance. Then number 2 is the prevailing condition, visibility, and observation. Then number 3 is the lapse of time between the criminal event and identification. Then these are the methods of identification made by eyewitness. So, number one is verbal description. Verbal description is a portrait, partly vividly describing in words the appearance of a person by comparing and true personal appearance. The number two is photographic file or Rudius gallery. Number three is general photograph. These are the files of photograph in any given establishment. Then number four is artist assistance or composite sketches or drawing or sketching the description of the person's face by the cartographer. Then number five is police line up or these are they're going to select the suspect from a group of innocent person to eliminate the power of suggestions as factors of identifications. Then cartography means the art of sketching the image of a person or the art of making map. Another is these are the general principles of criminal investigation. Then in the performance of his duties, the investigator must seek to establish the six cardinal points of investigation, namely, what specific offense has been committed, how the offense was committed or who committed it, where the offense was committed, what it was committed, and why it was committed. The phases of criminal investigation. Letter A is preliminary investigation. Identifying the criminal through confession. Eyewitness testimony, circumstantial evidence, and associated evidence. Letter B is follow-up investigation, trace and locate the criminal, and letter C is final investigation. You will prove by evidence that person is a guilty person. Improving the guilt of the accused in court, the fact of the existence of the crime must be established, the defendant must be identified and associated with the crime scene. Competent and credible witnesses must be available, and the physical evidence must be appropriately identified. The proof of guilty will depend on the establishment of the essential elements of the crime. The investigator must know his heart, the elements of the specific crime. These are the tools of the investigator in gathering facts. Letter A is information. Information data gathered by an investigator from other person including the victim himself and from public records, private records, and modus operandi files. Letter B is interrogation and interview, questioning of witnesses, suspects, and offended parties. Then letter C is instrumentation is a scientific examination of real evidence, application of instrument and methods of the physical science in detecting crime. Types of informants. Number one is criminal informant. An informant who give information to the police pertaining to the underworld about organized criminals with the understanding that his identity will be protected. Number two is confidential informant. Is similar to the former, but he gives information violate of the law, includes crimes and criminals. Number three is voluntarily informant. A type of informant who gives information freely and willfully as a witness to a certain act. Number four is special informant. Those who gives information concerning specialized cases only and it is regarded as special treatment by the authoritative, example, teacher or a businessman. The number five is anonymous informant. Those who give gives information through the telephone and with the hope that the informant cannot be identified. Subtype informant. Subtype informant number one is essential informant. A person who casually imparts information to an officer with no intention of providing subsequent information. Number two is recruited informant. A person who is selected, cultivated, and developed into continuous source info information. These are the categories of recruited informants. Number one is spontaneous or automatic informant. It is a informant who by the nature of their work or position in society has certain legal, moral, or ethical responsibilities to report info to the police. Number two is ordinary run of he-male informants. Informants that are under the compulsion to report information to the police. Number three is special employee. Special employee is an informants who are of specific is operational. Informant recruitment phases. Number one is selection. It is a particularly desirable to be able to identify and recruit an informant who has accessed many criminals in group or subversive organization, wide access, and probably the single most important feature in the consideration of recruiting the potential informant. Number two is investigation. The investigation of the potential informant that has tentatively identified as a probable must be as true as possible. It must establish possible existing motives as to the person might assist to the police and intel community. Number three is approach. Approach must be done in a setting from which might include pleasant surroundings, perhaps a confident apartment, completely free form of probability of compromise. Number four is testing. Testing programs should begin, of course, when the limited assessment with a gradual integration into the more important areas. Another is a philosophy of interview and interrogation. The right officer asking the right question in the right manner. At the right time, in a right place, will get the right answer. Interrogation general. Interrogation defined. An interrogation is the questioning of a person suspected of having committed an offense of a person who is reluctant to make a full disclosure of information in his position which he pertinent to the investigation. Number three is preliminary conduct. Interrogation should identify himself at the outset of the statement. Generally, the purpose of interrogation, he must advise the suspect to write against some incrimination and permission him that he does not have to answer question and that he does answer. These answers can be used evidence against him. He must inform the suspect on his right to counsel and to state appointment of counsel will be made available without cost of him if he desired no questioning of the suspect unless later has definitely with his right to be silent. Criminal interrogation system. Number one is type of offenders and approaches to be used in dealing with them. AA's emotion is offenders have greater sense of morality. These easily feel remorse over what they have done. The best approach in interrogating this type of offenders is to sympathetic approach. Non-emotional offenders normally do not feel any guilt, so the best way to interrogate them is through the factual analysis approach, that is the reasoning and the subject is letting him know that his guilt has already been or will soon be established. Development control of informants. Number one is confidential informant defend. A confidential informant is an individual who supplies information and on a confidential basis with the understanding that his identity will not be made known. Letter A, a scientific approach in criminals investigation can be assist law enforcers immeasurably by there is always that one case wherein the crime laboratory cannot help. There is a reason why investigators must to know the man on the street, that man who can supply information. Number 2 is law enforcers must develop confidential informants every day. Number 2 is need of informants. Informants in cases accomplish in all areas of investigation without confidential informants. The officer's source of informants is limited to what he gets through formal interview. The third is informants enable law enforcers to infiltrate the criminal elements and help lower criminal morale. Advanced information improves crime prevention and enables the police to find out the identity of transcend hoodlums. Informants are investigate shortcuts to solve cases, to recover stolen property, and to make apprehensions. Number 3 is to find criminals informants on whom to develop legitimators on criminals and persons engaged in certain occupations should be considered. Use of informants. Letter A is maximum benefits. Letter B is a designated executive should be aware the identity of the informant. Tactics. The subject should be kept unaware that he is being shadowed. The investigator should be inconspicuous. He should not be detected looking directly on the suspect. Note. The investigator must maintain note of log containing chronological records of the activities of both the investigator and the subject. Then wrapping or undercover work, then arrest of undercover agent. Scientific examination of real evidence. Letter A is the crime scene search. Is processing securing the crime scene, then includes the applicants of diligent and careful methods by an investigator, policeman to recognize, identify, preserve, and collect facts. Protecting the crime scene and the evidence. Successful crime scene processing depends upon the policeman of investigator's skill in recognizing and collecting facts and items of value as evidence, and upon his ability to protect, preserve, and later to present this in logical manner. These require making careful and detailed notes and sketches, using correct procedures in taking photographs of scene, taking written statement and transcribing verbal statement of the witnesses, suspects, and making a preservation, collection, physical observation, and nature. Custodial investigation, interrogation. It is the skillful questioning of the suspect or a hostile witness to divulge information on the crime being investigated. It must be remembered, however, the police investigator cannot learn proper interrogation merely by reading books. The success of interrogation depends on the legality, topic, physical insight, and experience. So that's our topic for today.